Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and actually we will be talking about 4th edition, 3rd edition, 2nd edition, and 1st edition as well. But what I want to talk about is the incredible damage that the Optimizer players have done to Dungeons & Dragons as a game, Dungeons & Dragons as a life element, Dungeons & Dragons as a cultural catalyst, to the activity that Dungeons & Dragons is, the glorious activity that Dungeons & Dragons is. Because it's hard to really even put into scope how badly optimizers have damaged Dungeons & Dragons as a glorious activity, and how much it's chipped away and really shrunk what Dungeons & Dragons could be. However, that might sound hopeless. It's not at all. We actually have a lot of hope. And one of the reasons why is our new optimizer crusher, Cody, over at Taking20. Cody gave us all a gift at the end of 2020, which will reshape, in my opinion, what 2021 will be for Dungeons & Dragons, the glorious activity we all love. All right, so basically, this is a deep subject. I appreciate your patience. Also, I am quite aware it takes me a while to get to my point. Many of you are very patient, and I really appreciate that, and I'd love to tell you I'm going to get to my point faster. That's just not the case. I really am talking about the philosophy of Dungeons & Dragons, the deeper cut material on Dungeons & Dragons. None of this stuff is simple. If you want simple, if you want quick, if you want unanalyzed, if you want unphilosophical, there's tons of channels where you can find it. And so I do want to say thank you, because a lot of you are patient. Let me get to my point. So thank you very much. I understand it takes me a while to get to my point. I'm not going to try to belabor the point. I do try to keep it quick, but I often understand that I take a little while. All right, so let's get there, right? So the problem that we've had is we've had these optimizer players. And literally, Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2 was literally created out of the overflow of optimizers who got upset that 4th and 5th edition weren't optimizing enough for them. Like, that's how many optimizers we have in Dungeons & Dragons. And the thing is, Cody and Taking20, at the end of 2020, he said, "Hey, I played Pathfinder 2E for a year, and I am no longer going to play that game anymore. I'm quitting the game, even though Paizo has treated me as a king, has been incredibly kind to me, and has been wonderful to me, right? And has just, really were incredibly kind to him, and still he just cut that game's throat, just slaughtered it and left it in a gutter to die. It's incredible the damage he did to that game. And if you think I'm wrong, just go take a look at the literally 100 response videos that came out of it, and he has well over 100,000 views on that video, and he tears that thing apart. He tears Pathfinder apart, right? And what really fascinates me is that what he did, I don't even know if he did this intentionally, but absolutely a consequence of it is optimizers are just the worst players. Let me be clear. No one should remove an optimizer from their table. Optimizers must be preserved at our Dungeons & Dragons table. We don't want to stop them from optimizing. What we need to stop them from doing is thinking for 1 second that they're the most skilled players at the table, or that they have any right to help anyone build an optimized character. And the reason why is it's okay for them in their immature tabletop role-playing game state to build these crap builds. Optimized builds are crap builds, in my opinion. And the reason why is they forget narrative. They put mechanics before narrative. Only your worst player will do that. And that's where we're at, right? Optimizers are valuable to players. Dungeons & Dragons is way too small to lose even a single player unless they're doing something truly offensive. And not offensive like in a D&D way, but offensive in a human way, right? Optimization is not offensive in a human way. It's offensive in tabletop role-playing games. And I feel free to say that because Cody just absolutely murked Pathfinder 1 and 2 and said optimization leads to incredibly boring builds and incredibly boring games. Thank you, Cody. Thank you for releasing us from the concept that optimizers are anything but the worst players at our table. The worst. Okay? We need them. We need to preserve them until they get into a mature state where they can build a suboptimal build, which is actually the most valuable build you can build at a table because it puts narrative over mechanics and not mechanics over narrative, right? And the other thing is, there has not been a history of suboptimal build players saying, listen, you need to break that character down and rebuild it because your build sucks narratively, right? That's not been a history. There is a massive history of outrageously selfish optimizers telling suboptimal builders, people who are building for narrative over mechanics, to rewrite their character, to make this change, to go down this path, right? I've seen it 100 times, and so have you, right? And so we really are being freed from the tyranny of the worst players being considered the best and feeling they have the right to tell anyone else at the table what to do with their character. Cody has, he has held the banner high, right? I play Warhammer. And Warhammer has these space marines who just hold these banners and they go across the battlefield with the banner held high. And Cody has raised the banner. And that banner is optimizers are the worst players, right? Cody didn't say that. He freed all of us to say it. What Cody said is he said, I played an optimization game for a year and it turns out it's crazy boring. It makes boring builds and it breaks boring narratives, right? And, I interpret that as optimizers have always been our worst players. And now we all need to understand that and embrace that, okay? All right, keep them at the table, preserve them. Don't make them leave the community. Don't make them leave your table. Don't make them leave anything, right? Just stop that noise when they try to tell anyone how to optimize like them. You need to position them to say, no, the reality is your character uses more mechanics. This person over here is actually concerned with narrative. They're of equal value, and you have no right to tell them to make their character useful, right? Your character is the one that's actually junk, right? You need to say that as nicely as possible with all the love and kindness you can. That's what you got to say. We got to start breaking this down, okay? Now, why am I talking about this again? Because I talked about this previously. Well, I actually had a new philosophical understanding of exactly how bad the optimization problem is. And it came to me when I was watching Call Me Cat, right? So we can understand Dungeons & Dragons better by watching the first episode of Call Me Cat, because it shows perfectly the power of a suboptimal build to be narrative, okay? Absolutely brilliant show. And it really shows us how badly optimizers have damaged Dungeons & Dragons as a life element, as a cultural catalyst, as a glorious activity, okay? All right, so how is that, all right? Call Me Cat, brilliant, brand new sitcom. It's on Fox. It stars Mayim Bialik, okay? She played Blossom when she was very young, but she's famous for being in a mega hit, which is Big Bang Theory. This is not a small show, and everything I'm talking about is not unimportant. Mayim Bialik is almost certainly a millionaire. She's a millionaire. There's no two ways about it, okay? She's a millionaire, and the reason why is the show that she just finished has 11 seasons. Shows like this there's only a few of them. There's Friends, there's The Office, there is Big Bang Theory, and there is Seinfeld, okay? These shows sell every 3 years for a $500 million plus, right? These are watched worldwide. So Mayim Bialik's new show is important, right? And every single thing that is shown on that screen has been worked over by no less than 10 writers, has gone through Mayim Bialik herself, and has gone through the Hollywood filter. This is big, big stuff, right? And this show is fascinating. It's the best example of a suboptimal build in real life I've ever seen, right? So the concept of Call Me Cat is that Mayim Bialik plays a character named Kat. The character is a super brilliant woman who had a job as a math professor. So she's a woman who has defeated the gender stereotype that, like, there was a problem in the 80s where, Barbie said math is hard, right? But she's like, no, I'm a super intelligent woman. I've become a math professor. But her character, right? By the way, Mayim Bialik has a degree in mathematics. Show's very meta, right? Okay, very meta, right? Uh, yeah, I think the show is like Mayim Bialik's life with cats. It's like I listened to Mayim Bialik's vlog, and the show is about single people being lonely. I know for a fact that Mayim Bialik is a single person who is lonely. She got a divorce. She talks about it in her blog all the time. She actually is very, very sad and often lonely. She's very open about it. It's right in the show, right? So this is a math professor, female math professor, who feels unfulfilled, right? Unfulfilled, right? So super smart math professor, right? Teaching others to learn math, not fulfilling. Quits that job and becomes the owner of a single cat cafe. Not a startup where she's going to build 25 cat cafes. She is specifically choosing to make less and do less, right? If you're a math professor, you're a woman who's figured out how to do STEM really well, right? And you have the power now to empower a lot of other women to do STEM, which has been a challenge in our society. That's not fulfilling. What's fulfilling is running a cat cafe, right? A cat cafe. This is super compelling. This is a great story. I love it, right? Like, here's this woman who's defeated who's cracked open the glass ceiling and become a math professor and says, that sucks. I want to open a cat cafe where people can come and drink coffee and have their cat with them. And not a chain, not like building a model for others, just one, right? And small businesses go out of business all the time. And this is like a super bad idea. Like, how's this going to scale? It's not, right? Like, people have allergies and a million other problems, right? This is a terrible business idea. It's the purest, best example I've ever seen of a suboptimal build. And it is beautiful, and I love it. I just love it, right? Because how would you do this in D&D? You would make a 9th level character who has 8 levels in fighter, 2-weapon fighting, glorious archery skills, the ability to go on heavy offense and heavy defense, right? But you have 8 levels in fighter and 1 level in wizard, right? And this character has decided that they're never going to punch anybody, kick anybody, arrow anybody, sword anybody again. And it's all magic, right? They're just dumping all those points. It's glorious, it's beautiful, and it should be every D&D character should have this level of depth, this level of sorrow, this level of pathos, this level of bitter and sweet. It's brilliant and it's beautiful, right? And it would drive optimizers crazy, right? Yeah, I have a 9th level character, but I only have 1 level that I use. I never use swords. I don't use any of the feats that are on my sheet. I don't do anything with the damage, and I just have 1 level of wizard. And so I'm 9th level, and I have 8 levels of powers. Feats, skills, weapon proficiencies, I never use, right? Deeply, deeply narrative, right? Mechanically disastrous, right? It's beautiful. It's a thing. It's a work of art, right? And here's the thing, right? If I was spiteful, I would love for players to start running characters like that and then telling optimizers, hey, why are you using a half-orc to be a fighter? If you're going to run a fighter, you should use a gnome, right? And also, if you're going to be a fighter, you should not take, power attack or, You know, why are you using all these feats? You should definitely be, you know, making sure that you are using a gnome and making sure that you take feats that minimize the damage you could do each round, right? And then once you do that, you can attach a good narrative story to it. That's what you should do. And I'd love it if you'd rewrite your character for me. If I was spiteful, I'd tell people to do that. They shouldn't. We should not revenge optimizers. Okay, but we need to understand that optimizers have discouraged people from playing characters like Cat, who are beautifully built for narrative, but make no mechanical sense, right? This decision that this woman made in her life was outrageously selfish, right? Like, you know, come on, you're a math professor who's a woman who now has the ability to bring up a whole bunch of other women and, you know, and marginalized people into STEM, right? And you're like, I'm going to go make a cat cafe. That is narratively beautiful, mechanically insane, right? Like, but it's just, it's so gorgeous. I love it. I just love this show. So, and it's a perfect example of a suboptimal build, right? And here's the thing. I also love too that it puts the truth to the lie, right? Optimizers are like, well, a lot of you think that optimization is just that you can't make a narrative and a suboptimal build, that you can't make an optimal build narrative. You can do both. No, you cannot. If you really dedicate yourself to narrative, you will end up with a suboptimal build, right? It is a lie that optimized characters can actually give good narrative stories. They cannot. And Cody has freed us from the nonsense of the lie. And we can start to talk about this openly. Optimizers are the worst players. They've negatively impacted our D&D for decades. And we need to tear apart the narrative damage they've done to the game and the limitations they've put on narrative within the game, right? They're the reason we have 200 pages of the PHP dedicated to combat when combat is only 1/3 of the game. Exploration, interaction, and combat. This has got to get fixed. It's got to get fixed in the rules. It's got to get fixed in the community. And it's got to get fixed with you and me. And we started, right? We embrace Cat suboptimal builds. Call me Kate's suboptimal builds. Beautiful, beautiful characters that make amazing narrative sense and no mechanical sense. I love this idea, right? Thank you once again to Cody for freeing us from the tyranny of optimizers and allowing us to see the true champions of play, suboptimal builders. May you all live in glory. That's my opinion. What do you think? You think I'm 100% right? I know you do. Put it in the comments below. And if you think I got one single thing wrong, which I'm sure I didn't, you could put that down there too. Thank you very much. And thanks for your patience. I know this one took a while. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.